Hello everybody! One of the most common uses for spirals in 3D modeling is to create threads in mechanical drawings. Screws, nuts, bolts, and many other things have threads, so knowing how to do this is very important. What we're going to do is thread a hex nut. In front of us we have an unthreaded hex nut. So all I have to do to complete it is give it its threads. I'm going to do this by creating a 2D quadrilateral, making that into a spiral, positioning it within the hex nut, and trimming off any excess. Let's start by making a two-dimensional shape. To do this, I'm going to make a quadrilateral named base shape. I've already written the code for this and copied it, so I'll just paste it here to save some time. Then I'm going to display just this shape so that you can see the shape we're using. There's our shape. Let's make a thread out of it using the spiral command now. Let's make an object called thread with the spiral command with a first parameter of base shape so that we make it using that shape, with a second parameter of 3 times 360, meaning doing 3 full 360 degree rotations, and then a third parameter of 0.5 for a per turn elevation of 0.5. Then let's put thread back down the show command so that we can see our thread. Very nice, we have our spiral in front of us. But what does it look like when we have the hex nut back in the picture? As you can see, the thread that we have made is not aligned with the screw at all. Another thing that you probably did not notice is that the thread that we've created turns in the wrong direction. Remember that when you're making threaded objects, that they will always tighten when rotated right or clockwise and loosen when rotated left or counterclockwise. Right now, if we positioned our thread correctly inside of the screw, it would tighten with a left-hand rotation. Before we position it, we need to mirror it using the mirror command to get the threads going in the right direction. So let's mirror our thread object around the x-axis by typing in mirror thread 0, y, creating the reflective axis along the x-axis. Now our thread turns in the correct direction, but it is still not positioned correctly. What we need to do first is rotate it 90 degrees around the x-axis, and then we'll move the thread so that it's aligned inside of the hex nut. We'll do this first by typing in rotate thread 90x, and then once again running our program. It is now aligned, but it is still below. So what we need to do is move our thread up the z-axis. I'll do this using the move command and move thread 0 units in the x-axis, 0 on the y, and then 1.3 on the z-axis. Awesome! Our nut is now threaded. However, the threads are still poking out from the ends of the nut. The last thing we need to do is trim these ends. We'll do this using the intersection command. So let's think about this for a minute. We want all of the parts of the thread which are inside of the nut to remain. The nut is 1 unit tall up the z-axis from the xy plane. So what we're going to do is set thread equal to the intersection of itself with a box which only contains this part of the thread which is inside. The x and y dimensions of this box just need to be larger than the inner cylinder of the nut, and the z dimensions must be between 0 and 1. We'll do this by typing in thread is equal to the intersection of thread with a box having these dimensions. Those define the x and the y dimensions, and this will define the z dimensions. Now let's run our program. We now have a completed hex nut. Notice the smooth transitions of the thread along the edges here. Imagine turning it right or clockwise to screw it onto something. To sum up this lesson, remember that when creating threads using the spiral command, it is important to pick the right shape and dimensions for your spiral thread. Remember that to get the direction of the thread correct, it is necessary to mirror your thread using the mirror command. Remember then to position your thread on the object that you want to add threads to and trim the threads to fit the object using the intersection command. Threaded objects are everywhere in the world, so practice this and you can make your own.